Hello and welcome to Page Turners, a weekly bookish podcast for every kind of reader. Whether you want to explore a variety of genres, tick books off your growing TBR, or simply skip the reading for book club, we've got you covered. That's Amy.
And that's Liv. Oh, hi.
Oh, hello there.
How are
Um,
you?
I'm I'm well. I'm well. I'm no longer feeling loved up anymore. Obviously, that's a thing of the past. Gone. No
So
more
last
love
week.
will ever enter. So right. So last week.
Have you been up to much?
No, not really. Just been playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood
Fun.
because
Ruby's a big Assassin's Creed fan. How you finding it? Or are you a big fan and this is just the latest of No, no.
No, no. So I only started playing Assassin's Creed 2, which is like the second one, um, like a month or 2 months ago.
Oh,
I was late to the gaming life.
oh,
But
okay, okay.
I'm, I'm playing through the Ezio collection. So Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is the second one. So I'm playing Ezio Auditore de Firenze.
Oh, you said that so it's very, very attractive when you said that there.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Where is it set? Because I know they're all set in different times.
Well, it's set in Rome.
Ah,
Well, I mean, he's from Florence originally, so that's where it begins in Assassin's Creed 2. But then you go around like Monteriggiano and you do a little bit of Rome when you go to assassinate the Borgia Pope. But now we're in Rome getting rid of the Borgia scum specifically. So,
Nice.
yeah.
You're having fun.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, the amount of assassinating you get to do with people is it just really speaks to something inside of me, something
Hmm.
feral and something animalistic that really need I really
Hmm.
need to do.
You're getting something out doing that. Yeah. Mm.
100%. Plus,
Mm.
Ezio is fit as hell.
It sounds
So,
fit. I would be really disappointed if someone with that name wasn't fit. So I'm
agreed.
pleased.
The thing is, though, like the whole point of Assassin's Creed is that you aren't really technically Ezio, you're Desmond, which, oh, fucking hell. And, like, yeah, no,
Hmm.
you've got lives, but trust me, Desmond, despite looking facially exactly like Ezio Auditore de Firenze, he's not, like, he's a fucking chav in a fucking shell suit. That's
Mm.
Whereas, oh, Ezio, he wears like assassin's clothes and he's got sort of like a little ponytail. And
Oh,
in the second one, he's got a beard. Oh my God. But he's like 45, 50 in the second one,
it's
which just,
okay. It's okay. It's all fine.
Mm. but, but yeah, no, enjoying it. How have you been? What have you been up to?
I'm all right, thanks. What have I been up to? Not much, really. Nothing very exciting or pod worthy, I would say. Just usual stuff. Yeah.
Well, just,
Getting my way through this book because it's been a week.
it's big.
But yeah, it's a big book. Mm.
We're we're just two silly girls living our lives and recording a
Just living our
podcast.
best lives. Just living our best lives, having silly fun time.
Absolutely.
Um, Stunning. So,
I have some book news. Um,
do tell, do tell.
We're a bit late to the game, but we've only just, sort of our resurgence of TikTok has begun. We're obviously world domination, etc. Those are
Mm.
those plans. First, resurge again on TikTok. Second, plan unclear. Third, world podcast domination. That's the plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So this news is fairly outdated, but it's still something we've not talked about. Have you heard that Colleen Hoover is announcing that she will be quitting writing?
I have not heard that. I have heard of all the associated drama with It
Yep.
Ends With Us and Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, etc., and Justin, but I have not heard anything about Coho and her plans for writing or otherwise. What's going on? Has she decided to give it up?
Apparently, yeah, apparently something to do with like lies being told about her or something.
All
She
right.
said something about like I quit or whatever. I think it's something to do with like It's meant it was cryptic and it was sort of like whatever, but yeah, no, apparently she's come out and said or it's been set down a grapevine that she's quit writing.
Yeah. Hmm.
And without trying
I've
to sound too
never read her books, so
yeah, without trying to sound too mean, is what I was gonna say is I'm devastated, obviously.
yeah, I have no skin in the game there. But yeah, that's news certainly for some people that might have read her books. I haven't. I was going to read Verity, and I just didn't get round to it. But
There you go.
yeah,
I think that's probably another reason why we're potentially late to this news because we're not big Coho fans.
no, and I know she has a massive following and some really big fans of her work who've read like everything she's ever written, but I've never read any of it.
No,
So,
yeah, no, no, me either. Oh well. Um, any news? What was published? Anything published? We're recording on a Wednesday, so it'll be what was published yesterday on the 18th of February. Anything good?
one thing, well, that I can find, Rebel Witch.
Oh, that's the sequel to Crimson Moth, right?
Yes, it is. Have you read Crimson Moth?
I have not, but I know that you have.
I have read it. It's good, really good, yeah. Witchy, almost like kind of Regency Bridgerton type vibes.
But with witches.
Yeah, but it's good.
I
I
mean,
won't say too much, but it's good. I haven't any idea if the sequel has the same characters, but I think it does from looking at this. So,
I was going
yeah.
to say, did you feel like the ending was, did you feel like it was a standalone or was it
No, no.
well, definitely a duology or a trilogy
Yeah, I'm
or
pretty sure. Yeah, yeah.
oh,
But no, recommend it. Yeah, yeah. I, does it kind of get lost in some other similar stories? Probably.
mm.
Um, but yeah, it's worth your time if you want to take it off the TBR.
I heard it was a little too YA.
It is a little bit, yeah. You need to be in the mood, I think, to read it, and maybe more of a fantasy than a romance mood, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, well that's normally the mood I am in.
Okay,
So yeah,
yeah.
could be worse, could be worse. Anything else? What you currently reading?
Oh, I'm reading a good one. Um, so there's a book coming out soon that I am very excited for. She says as she tries to find the name of it. It's called The Sirens by Amelia Hart.
Ah, yes, I
Yeah.
I have seen in our little social media resurgence, as I mentioned before, Page Turner's Pod on TikTok and Instagram, but TikTok, whatever. Amy has obviously been doing a bit of commenting as well, and I see
Mm.
most of your videos are around Amelia Ward's The Siren. She did Wayward, didn't she?
Amelia Hart. Yeah.
Sorry, it's because it's Wayward.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it is out. It is out. And I would like. I'm yeah. I'll get to that certainly. But I have started reading A Sea of Song and Sirens.
see,
It's a very
songs.
annoying thing.
Despite
It's
your fear of the open water, it does sound like it's your cup
it's
of
very
tea.
much my thing. It's by Whit Stanfield. And
Oh,
it's great. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Really good. I'm on chapter 12, so I'm not like too far through because I think it's fairly big and it's a duology. So I know that it is very much not finished when you finish book one. But I'm looking forward to it. I think the second one came out last year, so I'm just at that sweet spot of being able to read it without having to wait for the second one, which is
nice. It's great when you come across a book like maybe a month before the second is
mhm.
published.
Yeah.
Then
Oh,
you get that.
isn't it just a dream? I hate when you come across one and it's like, yeah, the next one is due in 2 years. And you're like, oh, why did I even bother reading it then? Uh,
Oh,
and then you
it's
have to
just
decide, don't you? Are you that kind of person? Will you wait and have the delayed gratification, or would you need to just read it? If you want to read it, are you a mood reader where you just need to get it done?
I think it depends. Like if I'm already a few chapters in or whatever, I'd probably just get it done. If
Hmm.
I found it and had the forethought, which I normally don't, to look and see when it was published versus when the next one's come out, I think I'd probably, if I could look at my TBR, which there are many, and be like, oh no, I'll read that instead. But when
Hmm.
I'm pretty set on something, I'm pretty set on something. So both a lovely fence answer there
No,
for you.
I'm firmly on the I need to read it now. I've got no impulse control. I'll read it and then I'll just have to experience the pain of waiting. But
Yeah. But then
yeah.
by the time, especially if it's a long one, a long wait, I'll have forgotten everything that happens in the
Oh,
first one. Can't be asked to reread it, so I'll never ever finish it.
Listen, we read books for this podcast, and sometimes by the time we get round to recording it, I've forgotten what the book's been about. So if I've got to wait a year.
Not today, though. Not today.
What are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading The Sapling Cage by Margaret Killjoy. I'm about
Mm,
2 or 3 chapters in, and it's great. It's sort of like a coming of age, quite I'd say YA, but it's trans fiction.
nice.
Um, and it's basically it's a one of three, so it's going to be a trilogy. It's called like Daughters of the Empty Throne.
Oh, love it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's two characters, Laurel, and they've always felt that they're a girl
Hmm.
despite being born as a girl, but only witches can be women. Women can only be witches. But their best friend is about the right age, and so they're gonna swap places with them and be taken and be hide themselves as a girl and become a witch. Um,
Oh,
it's it's already pretty funny. It's already quite heartwarming. Yeah, I really like it.
good. Fun times. And you're only, did you say two chapters in?
2 or 3 chapters in, yeah,
Yeah. So you'll have to let us know how you found it then when you finish it.
I will do just that.
Liv, would you like to tell us what we have read this week?
Oh, of course. This week, Amy, we have read Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan.
Beautiful. Look at that cover. It's nice.
Yeah, she's gorgeous, isn't she? Uh,
Mm.
just for fun. This is the Fairy Loot edition.
Oh, that's not how I pictured him at all.
Interesting. Well, we can talk
Mm.
about that. And here they are on the
No,
Phoenix,
that's maybe more so how I pictured him. Yeah.
and then Kunlun in the background.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Nice sprayed
stunning.
edges.
Oh, of course,
Gorgeous.
of
Love
course.
it. Very nice. Very nice.
We'll post this on TikTok so people can actually see. Um, yeah, no. So first thoughts, I have not read the Daughter of the Moon Goddess trilogy. Have you?
Nope. This is my first Sue Lynn Tan book.
Yes, mine too. I heard nothing but great things about the Daughter of the Moon Goddess.
Hmm.
People raved about it, so you know, smashing. Um, I don't know where to start. Let's start with, well, obviously as a big fan of setting, Ames,
Hmm.
how did you find this for because there's many different settings throughout this story.
I really did enjoy it. And I think that it's a testament to Sue Lynn Tan's writing that I could very vividly picture everywhere we visited with the characters. I will get round to the 1 star v 5 star reviews later, but there has been a little bit of, wouldn't say criticism, just discussion around maybe some of the writing being the prose being a bit flowery, maybe a bit too descriptive, overtly descriptive. But I really enjoy when we get to really immerse ourselves in a world. So for me, it wasn't really. But some beautiful, stunning descriptions of what the buildings look like, how grand they are, the clothing the characters are wearing. It was very immersive. I felt very part of it. And one of those books where as soon as you put it down, you feel yourself almost like back to real world again. You know, it's like really draws you in.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. I thought I'm in both camps sort of thing. Like sometimes I struggle through sort of a flowery description because I'm there, and if I'm in it as well, I'm just like I just want to get get, and I'll
Hmm.
find my eyes wavering down past long swathes of
Hmm.
paragraphs, dialogue where I see that something's happening again. But no, for me the clothes were the real draw, like the beauty of their garments. It was just God, they were just it just I felt like I was there and being draped in these clothes. They seemed
Yes.
yeah, they were so beautifully described.
Mm, it was lovely. I also got the delights of listening to the audiobook too, and the way it was told, it felt very fairy tale-esque.
Mm,
I really liked, and I felt like that when I was reading it, but listening to it just enhanced that experience even more. So it was very
yeah,
immersive. If you love setting, I think this is one that people will really enjoy. If you are more, as you say, perhaps not so much character driven, because I wouldn't say it's not character driven, but if you
agreed.
don't enjoy prose and kind of flowery, overtly descriptive, maybe you won't gel with Sue Lynn Tan's writing, but I really loved it.
Yeah. And yeah, as someone who as prizes character oversetting, I didn't mind it, but I did find it potentially sometimes on the long side. I really want to talk about what you just said about fairy tales there, because actually that sort of sparked something in me of like it makes sense to me a bit more now, why it's set in three parts.
Hmm.
It's the
Yes.
classic fairy tales of like the rule of three.
Hmm.
That's just right through culture, all the way through to like all the fairy tales, you must complete these riddles three, you must do three quests,
Hmm.
even in video games, if you want to do something, you've got to do it three times, or you've got to face three waves of something. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be that the number three, it means if you're by the third time, clearly you want it enough. And
Yeah,
I
yeah, no, I think that transcends even writing, doesn't it? It's in lots of different media. Like, even if you find like a recurring joke in a sitcom or like a comedian doing a bit, it's like they do it three times, then after that it becomes tired, But if you want to
Ooh,
repeat something, you can do, and you can get a little bit extra from the callback, but not too often. And three's like that sweet spot, I think.
oh, I love that. Yeah, no, I'd never even
Mm.
considered that. Oh, look at us. Culture.
Culture vultures. Yeah, no, I thought it was that side of it was great. I'm picking up what you're saying about it being a bit long, and again, we'll maybe discuss that in more detail later. But I do agree that if the setting and how descriptive it was meant that the book itself was significantly longer than it maybe needed to be.
Yep. Yep. And I realized we have completely just jumped straight into the book. We haven't talked about trigger warnings and we haven't introduced your speedy summary. What are we like, eh, Ames? Fucking forgetting all
Oh,
this stuff.
we've
It's
only
our own.
just started our format as well, and we haven't stuck to it after like four books, but no matter.
People wouldn't be here if we were professionals. Ow.
No,
Um, yeah, so trigger warnings wise, there are none in the book. I do believe there are also none on Sue Lynn Tan's website, but I'm gonna have a quick.
no, no, there aren't. I had a little look, but this it may come because she doesn't have pronunciation guide on there yet either, but she does for the
Daughter of
other
the Moon God.
books. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if she has any trigger warnings for Daughter of the Moon Goddess. And either way, there's not a huge amount of something that I would, major triggers. But like I would say peril, death, blood, gore, nothing crackers. When I say gore, it's not that bad. Death of a family member, at the very beginning. Can you think of any more?
Illness, I guess,
Yeah,
because
illness,
there's,
frailty, sort
but
of
then
like
that doesn't last very long. But yeah.
childhood stuff, references to childhood illness. But yeah, I think that's probably about it. Apologies if we have missed any. And of course, if any of these trigger warnings affect you, then maybe this book isn't for you. But obviously, please feel free to. Reddit's probably a great place for finding trigger warnings or people explaining a bit more about trigger warnings. So go and do your due diligence, as we always try and say. And then straight into the speedy summary that Amy's going to do for us today. Um, we can only apologize to the length of this summary. A lot happens in this book. Amy is going to do her very best to keep
It
it short.
started it started speedy and then it very quickly descended into not speedy by the time we were halfway through part two, and I think I had written about 50 notes on in my notes app, so I'll do my very best.
Counting you down. Three, two, one, go.
The kingdom of Tianxia is attacked and Li Yin, the heir, is poisoned. Her grandfather sacrifices himself using a rare divine pearl lotus to heal her, enraging the queen. After his death, Li Yin flees with her aunt and cousin but is attacked by winged devils. She is saved by the god of war, who tells her she must go to the immortal realm to receive the mandate to rule. She delays, vowing to reclaim the shield of rivers and mountains which the immortals have withheld to keep Tianxia under their control. In the immortal realm, Li Yin is placed under the god of war's protection, leading to growing tension and forbidden attraction. She attempts to uncover his secrets and steals a key, but her snooping gets her arrested. The god of war takes her punishment, deepening their connection. He later promises to advocate for Xianxia's freedom, but during the pledging ceremony, he betrays her by revealing she carries a divine pearl lotus, which he needs to heal his war wounds. When the ritual fails because she does not love him, she retaliates, severs the magic, and escapes with his sword. Returning to Xianxia, she announces a deadly competition for her hand to solidify her rule. The god of war arrives, offering a trade, her freedom for the lotus. She agrees but demands he train her in combat. Their bond deepens, but she refuses to live an immortal. Before he can leave, the Wushan attack, seeking the Lotus too. Li Yin uses its power to strengthen him, forcing them to retreat. To prepare for war, they seek the ancient Grandmaster in Kunlun. Li Yin is captured by the Wushan, where she learns she was once immortal, the daughter of Queen Kion, before being cursed under the war. Her immortality is restored, but she pretends to have fallen to the Wushan's side. She tricks them into believing she will open the Netherall gateway, but betrays them instead. During the final battle, Chen Yin is possessed by Lord Dalen, regains control, and wounds himself. Harming Dalen is in the process. Enraged, Dalen tries to absorb the river's power, but the magic destroys him. The gateway collapses, sealing the Wushan inside. Li Yin returns to Xianxia, reunites with her mother, and the god of war proposes marriage. With the shield of rivers and mountains restored, Xianxia is finally free.
Thank you so very much for that speedy summary. Speedy. Guys, if you're listening to this, and you want to maybe comment on our thing, or maybe send us a message on TikTok, when we ask this question, are you liking the speedy summaries as long as they are? Should we maybe like create a new section that says like just the gist or something, or maybe we call it something fun and exciting, and we do maybe a less detailed plot? Um, Let
I
us
think
know.
we give enough detail during our discussion too for you guys. So hopefully, even if the speedy summary, if it does change, isn't as detailed as it was, you're still going to get everything you need out of this discussion to avoid reading the book if you want, or to encourage you to read the book if you want, or yeah. I don't know if it needs to be as long, so let us know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And if most people have read the book, they know what happens and they'll get to join in the conversation either way. We can figure it out. We're always learning. Always learning. Um,
Mm.
but yeah. So let's start with how we both felt. And I think we both know, we keep alluding to the fact that both of us feel the same. I really wanted to love this book. I really wanted to come out and I really wanted it to be like one of my faves of the year because I had heard such good things about Sue Lynn Tan. And I'm not saying that this wasn't good. It just, I don't know, James, if you felt that there were at least three different stories in this book.
Yeah, I totally echo what you've just said. I really wanted to love this. When we were putting together our kind of yearly overview of all the books we were going to be covering this year, I was really excited to add this one in because I just thought it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a 5 out of 5. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to love it. It's very me. I enjoy setting. It's going to be immersive. And although it was, you're totally right. There was just far too much in it. Far too much.
It kept going, and we get with Lien. She goes essentially. She becomes the queen of, and I'm gonna apologize for all of our mispronunciations. We're going to do our best. Tianxia.
Mm-hmm. Tianxia, yep.
Yeah, I think it's more of a isn't it? Yeah, so I'm rather than just doing Tianxia. Apologies. Um, that is, and then that's her sort of kingdom that she's ruling, and then she has to go and pledge to the Immortal Queen, and then Zhongwei, our god of war, comes and takes her and says, "Oh, there's been an attack. You're gonna come and stay with me for a few days." I was like, "Cool, I get what this is. Forced proximity, enemies to well, we can talk about enemies to lovers in a minute, but
Mm.
like, it's not, but it's somebody to lovers." And I understand, and then they're gonna sort of fall in love, and he's gonna have obviously an obligation to the kingdom and an obligation to her and everything like this. And it was all going swimmingly, and then the betrayal, and I was like, oh my God. And then when he takes the divine lotus for him, tries to take it for himself, I was like, oh, what? And then she goes back, and I was sort of looking at myself like, how are we only this far into the book?
The betrayal, I think I saw coming. So the betrayal didn't surprise me, but it was the fact that every now and again something would come up in the story, and I would think it was going to go another way. So there was there was reference to a tournament so that a consort could be chosen. And I thought, okay, so it's that kind of story. There's going to be some kind of trial or some kind of tournament. And then that changed. And then there was reference to like a fake dating type thing to make Shunyan jealous. And I thought, okay, that's great. That's Shungwei jealous. That's fine. That's what's going to happen. And then that didn't really take off either. And there was a few times, and when I was summarizing it, there was a few times I thought, oh yeah, I forgot about that bit because it never really came up again.
Yeah, I think as well it was quite confusing because normally I so because that was after, that's in part two. That was after this
Mhm.
massive climactic sort of like she's
Mhm.
in mortal realm and like he's betrayed her, he's tried to take the divine lotus from her. Then obviously the winged devils attacked, and we don't, their fate is uncertain. And then to go back to Tianxia
Mhm.
and have it be like, oh, is it going to be fake dating now? It was just such a jarring thing from that
I
epic
know.
sort of like beginning to this sort of almost YA-esque, younger YA-esque contemporary romance setting and thing of like, oh, well, there's going to be. I was quite excited for the trials. I thought that was going to be good. I thought that was going to be his way of like coming in and fighting for her or whatever, and together they. But I was still like, but we're only 150 pages in.
I
Like, out of
know, I know. I liked
450.
part one. I really liked part one, but as soon as part one finished and I saw how much was left, that's when that little seed of doubt was planted for me. I thought, where are we going here? Because there's so much book left.
And the answer to where we were going, Amy, was everywhere.
Everywhere, all around the kingdom.
Honestly, do you
Oh.
know what? Normally in like when you see like, because obviously this book, like most and every good fantasy book, has a map.
Hmm.
Um, and normally you get sort of bits of the kingdom that you don't cover, right? There's bits in
Yeah.
there to make the map full. Nope, there's not one bit of this that you didn't get to.
No, and this is a standalone. So it's not even as if you expect to eventually visit these places. You appreciate that those places are there to just add more context and to create a reality that just to give us that idea of what this world looks like and how it all works. No, no, we visited all these places.
Yep. Yep. We, now that I'm thinking about it, and we're doing that classic thing of like, obviously, I thought it was sort of okay, but actually, I've come into it hoping that we can talk each other up this
I'm
time.
hoping the other way. Yeah, I'm hoping for the other thing because I thought you would have loved it because we didn't talk about this book over WhatsApp or we didn't do any of that this time. And we typically do. We do message each other throughout our reading experience. And I hadn't heard from you. So I thought, oh, I think this is going to be one that she really liked. So,
It was,
mm,
it was such a struggle. It was such a struggle. Like, I just,
mm.
not because I didn't care and not because I wasn't invested, but I just kept not knowing what I was rooting for.
I almost think that if I hadn't been doing it for the podcast, this could have been a DNF for me.
And that is some heavy stuff. I mean, I've said this many times. I try so hard not to DNF, and that's probably
I don't
something
like
to.
to either. I don't like to, but I think I would have probably wouldn't have DNF'd it and never went back to it. Not in a sense when I have DNF books in the past because I think this just is not for me. There's nothing in this book that I'm going to enjoy, and there's so many other books I could read instead. I think I would have taken a break and came back. I don't think I would have pushed myself to read this within like 3 days or something, which I mean, I was still trying to finish it today.
I told Amy before we came on, I was listening to the audiobook on Spotify at three speed while I was reading
Mm.
this. At the same time, just being like, gotta get it done, gotta get this done. And I think I finished, we were due to record at 30, and I finished at 4:28.
Mm,
I
okay.
was just, I was just, oh, and again, not through lack of loving the characters, because I thought Li Yen was incredible. I thought
I really
Zhang
like Lee Yin. Yeah.
was great. I loved
Mm.
Jiang Wei. I loved their relationship. I didn't like. I think I started to dislike it when I realized that they obviously had that past life together, and he's known who she is all along. Like it
Oh
made
no,
everything.
that made me like it.
Oh, it just. I would have preferred the I don't know, it just seemed like another form of something he'd already promised, no secrets, no lies, and I know that the point was that he couldn't tell her that she was immortal before she got her memories back, etc. But it was just I don't know, it
I
just
found before we knew about that, before we knew that they had that relationship in the past, it was too insta lust, insta love for me. And I wasn't buying it. And I was a bit like, this feels too young. This feels like rushed. It's strange. Once I realized the context and the background and the past, I could understand it more and I enjoyed it more as a result of that.
that is very fair. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I definitely did agree that definitely the first 150 pages where he was like, "Oh, you had to love me." I was like, "Fuck off. She doesn't love him.
No.
It's been 2 days.
I
What, is she
know.
touch starved?" and it was just such a weird one because normally when I can very rarely get on board with, like you said, in people trying to convince me that love is, sorry, that insta lust is love, but it's not. Um, and normally those people or those characters I would understand more if they haven't had love before or they haven't had a family. Generally, they're written because it's quite fiercely independent but also alone, and that sort of you can be I can believe in somebody falling in love quite quickly in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And probably a thousand other scenarios I can't remember at this point, but it's just so alien to me because Li Yen, obviously her grandfather loved her, she was brought up, and especially in a sort of, we were given this belief that any sort of weakness in this kingdom was seen as failure. And despite the fact that as a child she was weaker, he loved her no matter what. And Shu loved her. She had her best friend, like Qing Yan. Like, she wasn't without love. So for me, it seemed really strange. And this constant thing of like her being, oh, I don't love you. Oh, I do love you. Like it was, yeah, it was a bit weird. But no, I just found it so, just so left turn. No, that's
Mm.
not the phrase. But like just took such a weird turn when it was like, oh no, we've loved each other for years, and it's like, what? What? And I didn't understand the bit at the Crimson Temple. Sorry, I'm ranting now. I'm gonna pull it back. I didn't I didn't understand the bit
Um,
at the temple.
I didn't love the monologue bits. I hate when a character just goes off on a monologue anyway, because I'm like, it's interesting maybe one time that you tell me how much you like someone, or I love them, but I can't trust you, so I can never be with you. Oh, I wish I didn't feel this way, but actually I do feel this way. Oh, bore off. Stop going on and on about it. You can do it once, but please don't give me pages upon pages of it. I don't need that. And I felt like we had a lot of that in here, where she was all in one minute, all out the next. But it made more sense to me once we got to the end. I kind of understood it better, and yeah, I don't
So
know.
you almost made those monologues that you almost thought, oh, is that her memories crack?
Maybe I thought maybe that's what it is, because so much of it was very cleverly done. I know we've kind of alluded to maybe some plot holes. I don't know if there were so much plot holes, but I don't think they were just, there might be trials, there's not going to be trials. There might be fake dating, there's not really going to be fake dating. So they weren't really plot holes, they just were never really fully developed anything. But I felt like maybe I could give Sue Lynn Tan the benefit of the doubt when I realised that they had had this connection for so long, and that they were like star-crossed lovers and kind of fated mates type thing. I was like, right, okay, I kind of see
Oh,
where we're going now.
I am at least thankful that we weren't given any sort of their mates or whatever.
Hmm.
They just obviously, I really enjoyed, to be fair, the little flashback you get when you find out how they first met and that they were at
Yeah,
school.
that was very sweet. I enjoyed
And
that too.
he brings the jasmine to her, and that's just so that was really sweet. But again, I just kept feeling like there were some bits of this that were epic and like massive and really quite well politically put forward, like the idea of the politics versus the mortals and the immortals and how they've been kept from the sort of the other parts of the mortal realm. But then there were just other bits, I think, and I may the romance let it down for me. The romance let everything down. It was too
Yeah.
confusing, and it became juvenile in parts and then not, and then yeah, yeah. So
If I had any sort of, if I could sort of change anything about it, it would be the romance. I would just take it out. I think this could have been an absolutely epic fantasy story if you weren't trying to almost shoehorn in a romantic storyline as well. And I just don't think it worked. That's not to say that there wasn't tension. That's not to say that I didn't find their relationship sweet and I liked them as a couple, but it took away from what I was really interested in. And then it tried to almost weave the romance through the fantasy plot, and it just didn't really work.
I think it couldn't decide whether it was a fantasy or a romantasy.
I think almost it's like it's that old thing of like, is it fantasy? Is it romance? Is it both? Well, it's romantasy. It's a different thing, isn't it? It's like romance is a separate genre, fantasy is a separate genre. When you try and do both at the same time, you've romantasy as a skill in itself.
Yeah, agreed. For me, romantasy is very clearly when the romance plot affects
Yes.
the main plot or is the main plot or, and I felt that in part one, that's what we get. We were getting a romantasy. Her relationship with him was going to affect the freedom of Tianxia
Hmm.
and her freedoms and their life and stuff. And then the second part was then sort of when does part three begin? How do we get to part when she ends up in the netherworld, right? I think that's part.
Part three is the Netherworld, yeah. Part
Yeah.
two.
So part two is everything with the Wushin, and then they go up to Kunlun, and then there's bits of their romance, but that doesn't affect the plot at all at this point.
No, and they meet the Grandmaster, and then there's the Tree of Everlasting Life, and she's blessed by the tree. Uh,
And yeah, and we hear him having a chat, and there's that whole not miscommunication. She hears something, and
no, another thing gets added in that you think's going to be, oh, this is going to be important for the plot. No, it's not.
and then yeah, then we get to part three where they're both in the netherworld with the Wushin, and then Aunt Shaw is a traitor, and yeah,
Do you know, I was getting to the point though by that stage, Liv, I was just like, is she okay? This is fine. Again, if it had been different, I would have really been interested in that, but it was already getting to be a struggle to get through it. So all I kept thinking was, well, this is going to be long now, then, isn't it? It's another 25% of this book to go.
yeah, and so yeah, second part we get try to get the fantasy, but with the romance, it's like, hey, remember us guys? And then part three was sort of just it, yeah, it just
We added a
I
big bad. We had like a kind of villain.
oh, but it was that classic thing of the villains aren't the villains again.
Not the
Like,
villains again. But then they did that. The Wushin were not the villains. We were, and I liked that. They were sympathetic. I thought, okay, interesting. And then when Aunt Cho came out and we were revealed that she was involved, but actually she still really cared about Li Yen, I thought, right, great, interesting. There's a lot going on here. There's shades of grey. And then we got the big bad, who actually was bad just for the sake of it and
oh,
was trying to steal power and was greedy and
I mean, I wouldn't go as
Huh?
far. I wouldn't go as far to give him our moniker of pantomime villain that we do give
No,
to
no, no,
our,
no, no, not
we
this
do
time.
who are evil for absolutely evil's sake.
No, he's not going ha 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 in a castle. Like, there's more to him. Yes, twiddling a moustache, exactly, with a
Um,
cloak. But
but yeah,
where
he
did
just
he come from?
oh, and he had so many mummy issues. It was so bad.
I
Like, and
know.
then you found out, oh, it's because mummy didn't love us as much as me sister. And it's like, okay. And then the parting shot that he had is that he didn't kill his sister, but like he didn't help her or fucking hell.
No.
It was, and I fully respect the craft that Sue Lynn Tan has put this book together.
Yeah.
We say it so often. We've just posted about it on TikTok. Just because we're obviously having this discussion doesn't mean that, well, first off, we're never going to tag Sue Lynn Tan in it because that's just disrespectful. And secondly, like, doesn't mean we didn't hate the book. It doesn't mean we hated the book.
No. But what
But
would be the point in having a podcast if we just said every book was fantastic? Like, we're having a discussion, and you may completely disagree with us. And you know what? That's fair enough because there's maybe a lot to this book that I fail to appreciate. And I loved so much of it. And it's not a criticism on the story, and it's not saying you should never read it or it's not worth your time. It's a great book, but there's the bones of something excellent there. It just doesn't fully, it doesn't live up to the potential.
I, again, because we're not going to tag Sue Lynn Tan in this, and I feel very mean for saying this, I thought it was a big fucking mess. And that is not a soundbite
Yeah.
we'll be taking, but
So say
honestly,
we're not going to put that on a TikTok clip, but yeah. um, I
it
see what
was
you mean. I see what you mean. I think there was a lot to it that was there was a lot to it that was really well developed, and I think there a lot of love went into it, and you can see that. But I think she tried to do too much, and if you pared it back a little bit, it would have been a better book as a result.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I think
Oh,
maybe
hello. I really wanted to like it. I really did.
I
Oh,
I did like it. But it's that whole thing of like that thin line between love and hate, right? Like we like something, so therefore we pick it apart until we're bloody sick of it. And that's
we do.
that's yeah, so true. So true. And to
Yeah,
stop me from saying something else I might regret, shall we have a look at some reviews?
let's do it. Okay, do you want to start with 1 star or do you want to maybe think about a more positive spin on it and go 5?
Let's go 1 star because I'm really hoping that somebody has said worse than what I have said.
Um, so we've got quite a lot of people that DNF the book,
Oof. Okay.
typically around 40 to 60%, I would say, from what I had a look at. So I don't know what 40 to 60% is. Is that
Uh,
part two or part three?
40%'s probably well, 40%'s just under 50%, right? Obviously, just under half.
Thank
So
you.
that's just under 225 pages, which is probably around about halfway through part two.
Interesting, because I think end of part two, part three was the weakest part of the book. So that's doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, very YA.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Very the romance for sure. The fantasy because it wasn't built on had the potential to be high fantasy, had the potential to be epic. But yeah, it just kept getting shafted because of the romance. So I would agree, but I think there has to be a bit more context. Like the whole thing wasn't YA, but there were there were shades of high fantasy that I really wanted to sort of
Hmm.
like get into. Is it
Hmm.
marketed as an adult book?
I think so because of the sex scenes.
I mean, they were nothing.
I know, but I really don't know how likely it is who markets YA with that.
All right.
Nothing for us because we just read Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. We are can't come back from that. But I think I don't know. Very YA is a bit unfair. I think.
Especially when it definitely
Yeah.
sounds like that person is describing it as a derogatory term. They are
Oh, they
using
are.
the term very YA derogatory, and that
Hmm.
doesn't have to be. Um, I think definitely if it's been marketed as adult fantasy, then I think I understand why they're potentially grumping that it's actually YA.
They said it
Uh,
was immature,
oh, not
which I
quite.
think is slightly different. I think that's even more derogatory, isn't it? Because it's not just classifying it as, oh, it's a YA book for a younger audience. Immature screams underdeveloped,
Yeah, yeah.
which I
Oh,
don't know how fair that is.
yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely, I would agree with that, but not with the malice behind it.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Um,
Oh, no.
Young Wei is one-dimensional and boring.
Young Way is one-dimensional and boring.
To be fair, if you have DNF this book and you do not get to the reveal that they've known each other for a long time, then I can see why you might think that way. Because when I looked into it, their criticism, one dimensional, was related to the fact that he's like every other fantasy romance male main character.
Well, I mean, what do people want? Like that's what, and I'm not.
Yeah.
There's only obviously this has been a criticism of mine in the past, but it's sort of like a you know what you're reading. Like so, I've just had a look at the classification. A stunning standalone romantic fantasy. It's been categorized as fantasy, romance, romantasy, young adult, adult.
Oh, young
Um,
adult. Okay, okay,
I think people have just put lots of tags on it, but it has,
okay.
at least on a sort of website of certain gravitas, it's been called both, but also young adults. So yeah, no, I don't
But do you think
know.
he's boring? Is he just going to blend into the many before him, or is he going to stand out to you in any way?
Um, there were definitely bits where I enjoyed him. I definitely loved him in part one. That's why I think part two or three was a bit of a cop out because like he's already going into it knowing he loves her, so anything she does was never any worry there for him or for her. Like there became it immediately turned part one into this lack of peril for me.
Yeah, I found him a bit boring, to be
Oh, you
honest.
did? Okay, fair.
Yeah, I just don't think I'll remember him. Like if you asked me to maybe list some MMCs that I really enjoyed, I don't think he would feature, and not because I didn't enjoy him, but just because I think he's quite forgettable.
Mm, well, I think, yeah, I
I
think
love Lee
also,
Yen. Lee Yen's not forgettable. I thought she was a great character.
and I think I would probably argue that's because this is her story, not his, right? Like this is all
No,
about
but I do think I understand that, but I do think it is up to the author for us to be invested in more than just the main character.
true, true.
But that's just my opinion of him. I don't know if everybody feels like that about him, but we've got to pick a side here. I've got to say something, and I just don't just yeah, don't think he was one dimensional. I think that's unfair. Boring's they're being using that in a derogatory way to make the review kind of stand out, which I understand, but forgettable perhaps is what I would say.
Yeah, I definitely think I would disagree that he's one-dimensional
Mm.
because I think he clearly has ulterior motives all the
Mhm.
way through the book, and his love for her and their promises to each other, and also trying to balance her newer mortal perspective and her ties and stuff to Tianxia. Um, so I think he definitely has parts of him, but I think I'm gonna stand on what I said before and say I don't think this is about him. I get what you're saying about like trying to make the other characters interesting, but like the character development has to come from her because she's the one with the identity issues. She's the one who doesn't know who she is. She's the one finding that self-exploration for herself. Everyone else in the story, sure, is pretty set in their ways of who they are or whatever, and whatever age they are, etc., etc. But she's the one that's the one having this identity crisis because of like her past immortal life or whatever. So I can understand why she may have overshadowed him and made him seem a little boring by comparison. But yeah, no, I'm not sure. I don't know why I'm going to bat. I'm going to bat for him. I think
I think if you feel that way, you should go into battle for him. It's just that's yeah. I just didn't really feel that way, but
very
fair.
fair.
The writing was too flowery and it was too prose heavy.
Um, the writing was very flowery, yes. And I can take some of that when, you begin because they're setting up the scenes. There's classic info dumps. There's those types of books where this is going to be beautifully written and you can appreciate that as long as everything else backs it up. But I feel like that's where I lost it for me. I will go through flowery writing and love it, but if nothing else comes up to be like, yeah, but thank you for this patience and for coming through the beautiful prose and da, 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 and I'll give you this as a reward. That's
Mm.
at least how I see it. But yeah, no, it was too flowery. Yeah, it was too much.
Yeah, and the criticism that a particular person's used was that you had just too much detailed descriptions about what people were wearing and what the rooms looked like. And again, I agree. I think if you do it at the start to create really strong world building and really immerse us in there, fine, I'm all for it. I want that at that stage. But once the action kicks in, I don't want it to take away from the action. And I felt like, as you said, there were pages upon pages of prose, and I was waiting for dialogue. And I'm happy to read prose. I'm not the kind of person who's going to skip through it to get to dialogue, but I just was like, oh, but we've got so much going on. I kind of want to know what people are saying about it and not just describing another place that we're now visiting, another temple.
Yeah, I mean, I have two thoughts about that. First one is obviously we do change locations an awful lot in this book, so I can
Mm.
understand needing to redescribe the landscape, redescribing how different this place is to all the other places we've visited. Um, Also, I think I wonder, and I just had this thought now, but obviously this is sort of Sue Lynn Tan has taken inspiration from Chinese mythology for this, and I
Hmm.
definitely think Chinese culture it's quite vastly different to Western culture. Um, so maybe the reason she describes so much is because that's something, that because it is vastly different, and the clothing is different, the buildings, the architecture, the setups of the houses, etc. Maybe it's been not over described, but or described potentially more than a house with a couple of chairs and a table because it's Western architecture, etc. We all know what that looks like. This is being published in a strong Western industry. So maybe the over description is to ensure that we never forget where we're set, or we do not discount this um, as a, I don't know, regular Western based author writing this. I don't,
I agree with you, but I also think that there are Western authors that write like that because fantasy is descriptive by its nature, because it's not a world that we're used to. It's a world they've entirely created with different places and creatures, and you've got to immerse people into it because without setting, how can you create a fantastical world? And how can you really get people to buy into it? So actually, although I agree it was flowery, I don't think necessarily from what you've said, which I totally agree with, it's a bad thing. Like, what do you expect when you read a fantasy book? You are gonna get a lot of description.
yeah, yeah. Look at this live reactions, live changing of minds, live of us having these
Mm.
moments of us just yeah.
I'm really
Well,
trying to have our discussion take me to enjoy the book more because there was so much of it that I did love. So I am hoping to find just to cultivate that a little bit more during this. Let's go into the 5 stars because that might help us. Okay, so Leanne is a great, extremely strong and well written female main character. That's a reassuring face. We're trying to be positive. No,
I'm
go
trying.
for it.
No, I I preferred Li Yen before part three. Like because somehow magically, as soon as she got her powers back, she's capable of it just didn't seem to fuck with her as much as I thought it would. Like this whole jarring, oh, your memories will like so she gets a base amount of memories, the mirror of destiny, the puddle. If a puddle starts talking to me, I got some questions, but it's fine, whatever. The puddle grants her memories back. She chooses the way of the immortal. She chooses a good
Kind
guy.
of a. She kind of does what we do, and she doesn't choose either. She just completely sits in the fence and goes, "Not that one, not that one. Middle ground,
We
maybe."
love we love a fence sitting queen.
We love
Yeah,
her.
sorry, yeah, she shirks off both because she doesn't want the bloodshed that would cause war inevitably for the good side, let's say. Um, yeah, so then she becomes neither mortal nor immortal. And th then we get told that some of her memories will come back, some of them will come back in time. Um, and then all of a sudden she's fucking throwing up shields all over the place and like shielding herself.
Frost magic, and yeah, yeah, she's straight away. No, I agree. And I was like, oh no, please, I don't want her to be the most powerful person in the world. That classic trope that we get where, because up to this point, she hasn't been. She's
No.
been very out of her depth. She's been cunning and she's been clever and she's been really strong and committed to her cause, but she has never sort of used magic or became extremely strong to be physically superior to anyone. And
No.
then when she gets the magic, I thought, no, please, I don't want her to just start like taking names because that's not what we've had up to this point. Um, and I agree, the reaction wasn't really enough.
I really enjoyed Li Yen, like I said, until part three. I thought, like you said, she has known weakness and obviously that's explained because of the sort of the problem she had as an immortal and then giving up her immortality to become immortal. Like that's why she was weakened and everything. And so I appreciate that without part three, part one and two wouldn't exist. But it just again I'm getting choked up.
Mhm.
Part one gave us someone who was relatable and
Mhm.
striving through adversity, and then part three just gave us, like you said, someone who takes names.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, fair. Next one. And we haven't discussed this yet, so I'm kind of skipping through some there's quite a lot, but I don't want to just go back through the same old ground that we've covered already. Um, the tension between the two characters was really well done.
Yes, in part one and part two it was,
Hmm.
for sure.
Agreed.
Part one was great, especially because we knew we were leading towards a betrayal. We knew it was going to happen, and then um, she's still being sneaky and like
Hmm.
everything. And
Hmm.
I just wanted more of that. I wanted more time in the house. I wanted more time of them playing Go. I wanted more time of them like because she does this really clever thing where she doesn't play as well as she should or as
No,
well as
because
she
she wants him
can.
to underestimate her.
And then so the next time, but we never get a next time.
No, no, that's right. We never get a next time. Ah, it's so frustrating because that's one of my favorite tropes in romantasy is the mutual betrayal. Like I'm setting out to betray you, but you're also setting out to betray me. And I just love that kind of push-pull dynamic you get with that.
Mm,
So I was really, really, really loving part one. And I didn't even mind the reveal. I was like, yep, I'm all for it. It was a bit soon, but I'm sure there's a bigger plan going on here. We've built up so much tension. And then you're right, it just kind of fizzled out when it got
mm.
to part three.
Yeah, part two, obviously, when he comes and sort of is like, "Oh, I'm gonna stick around,"
Mm-hmm.
and "Oh yeah, well, sorry, I'm actually betrothed to this guy," and you can see the anger, you see all that shit, and
Mm, mm,
you're just like,
mm-hmm.
yum,
Yes,
yum, yum.
yes.
Um, but yeah, oh, I'm gonna do a trial for my hand, and that was never mentioned again. Never mentioned again.
I
I'm sorry.
know.
Just to be clear, in part two, it was never mentioned again. The
Nope.
advisors are constantly on her, like literally like, oh, you need to marry. And she's like, oh, I think I might do a trial by combat for my hand. And they're all like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, okay, we'll get prepping, etc. And
Mm.
then all of a sudden she's engaged, she's betrothed to Cheng Yin, with Ching Yen, sorry. And that's fine. Like I couldn't tell who knew and who didn't for that.
I
Like
didn't know either.
at
I
first
had
it was
no idea.
a little quiet, and then all of a sudden every fucker knows. So I don't understand. I don't understand.
No.
But what was the point? Oh, the tension. Yeah, the tension was beautiful. Like the tension in part one was fate, and then the tension in part two, the bit where they're in the river and he jumps
Hmm.
in and he's drowning, and
And then they
and
have like
then
an underwater kiss thing.
and then he like, oh, I thought like, yeah, because then he puts her on the bank and they're
Hmm.
about to get down and dirty, and yeah, and then he like lifts her up onto the shore, the water, the bank,
Hmm.
river, and they're about to like and he's kissing her, and they're about to get down and dirty, and I was like, yes,
Mm.
and then it doesn't happen, and it was yeah, no,
No, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot of they're just about to kiss or she's just about to give in, and then she has that crisis of conscience and thinks, "No, I can't. He's so evil. He's cruel and heartless." And there hadn't really been much at that point that would really I know she'd heard things about him and he has a reputation for being evil because or being cruel because he's a god of war, but she hadn't really experienced anything like that from him.
yeah, yeah. Question,
Mm.
bit off tangent here, but did we ever find out what the God of War does? Like, and how does one become a god of war? Like, is it a position you apply for? Do you have to interview? Or do you have to just be like a fucking badass fighter? Like,
I don't
but
know. I think it's mentioned in the little flashback that she knew him before that, and then he works. He's like the Queen's. he's in the Queen's Council and he's like her number one protector, but I don't know how he came to be that. And I don't know, I don't think it's an inherited role. Could be wrong. Um,
I don't think it is. Also, we never get any other gods like
no, I know,
God
I was really keen to. Yeah, I
God
was
of
keen
finance.
to. Yeah, I wanted something, but there was nothing. Yeah, it's a shame actually. Maybe I think God of War made it sound like something else. Like I think we're putting our own sort of our own thoughts onto what that might be and expectations onto what that might be. I think it was just almost like the kind of he was the leader of the armies.
Yeah, maybe an honorific as opposed to he
I
was an
think
actual
so.
god. Yeah, well, that was disappointing. Right, sorry, hit me with another 5 star. The tension was great, but hit me with another 5 star.
That's it. We've done it. We did the other one. It was world building, and I think we've talked about it in quite a
Yeah.
lot of depth at the start. So yeah, I mean, it's still fairly new. There's not a huge number of reviews yet. I think there's going to certainly become, it's going to be very, very highly reviewed in terms of numbers of reviews. When I first found the book, it was sitting at fours. It's not there now. So
No, it's just slipped below, hasn't it?
yeah, so well, I don't know, but yeah.
I think it's probably going to be quite um black and white as to whether or not it's like you're either going to love it or you're going to. I know we're sort of fence sitting, but yeah,
I
it
think
was
you're
a
either going to really love it and it's going to give you everything you wanted, or you're going to have had your expectations be a bit high and be disappointed slightly or a lot, depending on your
what
personal
you
feelings
expect.
on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, ick of the week.
I didn't really have an ick. I didn't really find anything that made me feel icky. I thought it was
It
stunningly written. Nothing really jarred me out of it at any point.
Oh no, I mean her ministers were my ick of the week
Oh yeah, but I feel like they were supposed to be an ick, weren't they?
for 100%. Yeah. Yeah, no, there was nothing that potentially considered icky.
No, I always think of an ick as like something that takes you out of it, like the bare feet thing in Deep End, like that. I totally think that's a perfect example of an ick. But I was just fully immersed the whole time. I didn't really have anything that took me out of the story.
No, no. Yeah, fair. Um, okay, so we mentioned them very briefly. Would you like to talk about the sex scenes or sex scene or whatever?
Scene.
Um, like the rest of the book, it's very flowery and it was beautifully written, don't get me wrong. Like,
It was. And to be fair, if it had been like balls to the wall, like overtly descriptive, really graphic, it would not have worked in the story up to that point. So I think it suited the style of writing that Sue Lynn Tan used for this book.
yeah, and it was clearly very passionate, and
Mm,
very, like, but I just, for me, and do you know what? I'm gonna give it my ick of the week. This I found it, not necessarily the sex scenes here.
great.
It's just clearly how much banging they did that one night when they finally come together. But they're in enemy territory.
I know. I know.
Like, she's put a table over a door because she set off through habit, but that won't keep the Wushin out. Of course it won't. Nobody comes to look for her. And I know that they're like, oh, she's resting after the transformation. They're meant to be fucking suspicious of her, so surely somebody would be listening, and she's just getting.
I know. And I didn't pick up on that either until the next chapter, or maybe the second one after that, where it said something like she snuck out to see him in the forest. And I was like, oh yeah, of course, they're not supposed to be together. So how did they get away with that?
Yep. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Maybe it was like, I want to put a sex scene in at the 75% mark, and it's happening now.
fair, fair. Classic time as well, isn't it? Like you even in well, when smut isn't the plot, like it's normally I think maybe as early as 60%, right?
Mhm.
When you have that. So in traditional sort of things, it's normally before the betrayal, because that is
Mhm.
the biggest thing you can share with someone is vagina. So yeah.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah, totally. And it's almost like, what is slow burn? Oh, it has to be 70% plus for it to be a true slow burn romance. So,
Or have it over a couple of books.
yeah.
give the people what they want, namely me. But yeah, side characters before we move on to final thoughts.
Mhm.
I really liked Chin Yen. I thought he was a great sort of counsel for her.
Yeah.
But also he was obviously given the moniker of comic side relief. Do I think it would have been better if they'd killed him off? Would that sacrifice have meant more?
Did you feel, because you talk about this quite a lot, did you feel that because there was allusions to him being bi and he was the kind of classic side relief character, was that disappointing?
Um, I think because it wasn't essential for him to, like, it didn't matter who he was going to marry, I minded it less, but I completely understand what you're saying. Yeah, I do think I do talk about that a lot, yes.
Mm,
But yeah, no, like, I liked also, I suppose if I'm looking at it from sort of like taking a step back, um, the fact obviously that Li Yen doesn't bat an eyelid is a great one. Um, And yeah, I think I've just accepted that if it's gonna be a heteronormative romantasy, you're gonna have to have somebody and as a side character that's gonna
there's going to be a bit of tokenism there.
it's gonna tick that quarter of queer.
Yeah,
So
fair.
oh, that
Fair.
could be a whole new feature, the quarter of queer. Um,
Um, so I quite liked Aunt Show. I know that we had the betrayal, but I actually thought she was quite a well-developed character.
I
And
re-
she loved Chin Yen. She didn't want to betray, well, she used, let's not, forget that she uses him to be like a host to, so it's sort of like he's a clone almost
oh,
because the Wuxin can take over people's bodies and but I actually didn't realize they could. I thought they could just change their appearance.
so did I, because she says shapeshifter. They say
Yes.
shapeshifter and they say transform. So all this
Yes.
time I'm like, right, so clearly Ching Yen's being held
I thought he
captive,
was in a dungeon or something.
right? But then he,
He
so then,
fights his way back to take control. So almost as if like he's the host body that
yeah,
then manages to get the majority of the power of the body back again, and then he stabs himself to kill
Da Darian, Darian.
Dalian. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an
But
R.
then
Darian.
no, it's an L.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Darian.
because I've written it about 3,000 times today when I was doing my notes. Um, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it
Anyway,
is. Um,
yeah, but I was like, okay, and then it was like, oh no, he's killed, and I was like, yeah, but he's not hurt though, is he? Because isn't he not back at the
so,
nether world? What? Yeah.
so I understood when they mentioned that the Wuxin at their weakest were spirits.
Yes.
I was like, oh, okay. But then I was like, yeah, I was 100% the same as you. When he was stabbed, I was like, oh, but what about Qin Yan's body? What's going on here? And then I was like, well, what do you mean that's Qin Yan's body? And
Yeah, 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 yeah.
then Dalian was like a spirit, and then he took power from everyone else
Everyone else, he kind of like sucked them dry.
through to then create his form as corporeal.
Yes, yeah, yes.
Yeah,
With
cool.
the white hair and the kind of amber eyes and things. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
boy, was that confusing.
Okay, but yes, do I think he should have died? I thought he had died for quite a bit of it, and then I realised when it said in a very short sentence, like, "Oh, he's fine. He's just going to be recovering." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, it was confusing for me because like they said, Lien said, "Oh, we've got to get him back to Tianxia," and then Aunt Shu just like gets him on a cloud and like flings him through the gateway. I'm like, all right, so he's just gonna be at Kunlun then. So are they gonna have? It took them days to get there.
Yeah.
Like, cool. We'll just let it happen. Cool,
Just
okay.
leave it. Also, the part with the ferryman at the end, and it was like, you can't go on the boat unless you give me your memories. And then there was going to be a second sacrifice made where they were going to be almost like that kind of classic lovers of I'll find you in any lifetime. Like we are cursed. We you know we can't be together, but we are fated, and we'll find each other again. And then Aunt Cho comes and says, "Oh, actually, could you just do me a solid and let them go?" And he's like, "Yeah, right then. Yeah, no problem. That's fine."
Yeah, okay, come on, be a bro. And he's like, oh, all right
Mm.
then. Like,
And he's like, "Yeah, no."
what favor could the boatman of the Neverworld possibly want? Like, what is his purpose other than this? Fine, fine, it's fine, it's fine.
He
And
just
then
wants
they
a
all,
holiday. He just wants like some time away.
but there was like that they all took a little sit, and I really liked that concept. They sacrificed for them because they'd sacrificed it. Like, I loved that concept, but I needed to know more. Like, so could you give up memories voluntarily, or did it take all of the particular bad ones that they didn't want to remember? But then what's to stop if the Wuxin don't remember sort of what happened? What's to stop them also griping once again about the
I know.
immortal
The
having
whole
the same?
thing starting again. Yeah, I've got it.
Oh man, yeah, okay.
Last thing I will say, the marriage proposal bit at the end. I was just ready to end by that point. It was, the Kindle was sitting at like 96%, and I was like, we just need to keep going, keep going.
I don't
Um,
I don't know if there's some sort of thing of like maybe culturally or customs that we don't have that we missed out on so because we didn't get the significance of this. But like, oh, I haven't seen him in a month or whatever. I'll just send a letter to him. Why couldn't you have stayed in touch before? Like, why
I
couldn't
think
he
he was
have
just doing his duties. Forgive me, but I don't think it was necessarily a cultural thing and that it was like ceremonial or anything. I think he was just away doing bits in the immortal realm, and she was with the mortals because she'd realised and recognised that her people were starving and were suffering, and she wanted to do what she could for them. So she was very committed to that. I don't really understand. They went away for a bit, and then he came back, and then he was
well,
like, don't do the contest thing anymore. Marry me."
yeah, well, she clearly obviously wrote to him saying there's going to be a contest for my hand, etc.
Mm.
Little tease, like, that'll bring him back. But then when he comes back and he's like, I've been gone, it took me a little longer than normal. He's clearly been negotiating for Tian
Hmm.
have
For the
the
shield.
the shield
Yeah.
of mountains and
River and mountains.
river and mountains. That's it. I nearly said mountains and lakes. The shield of river and mountains, and like to then bring the wall down, to then have the things of Kunlun. And I was just like, all right, first off, way to steal girls' thunder. Like,
No. I
um,
know.
and so yeah, so I didn't know whether there was maybe a cultural thing, was what I was thinking of, maybe like the preparation of a dowry, that type thing. But
Maybe.
it
Yeah.
was it just seemed like an elongated process
I
that,
know.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Shall we move
Okay.
on to final thoughts before we say anything else we'll regret?
Let's do it. Final thoughts. What did you think? Not that we
Um,
don't know, not that we haven't just spoken about it.
I think I think I'm interested in reading. I'm still interested to read Daughter of the Moon Goddess because I need to know if this is regular Sue Lynn Tan or if this is maybe something that she's tried to write completely differently. And maybe do because I can see the beginnings of subversions of tropes, even trying to subvert the romantasy trope of what we normally expect and get. But I think we said before, it's like it was trying too many things, when it
Yeah.
didn't work out. So I'd still really like to read Daughter of the Moon Goddess, like I have it here in its absolute glory.
I would love to read it. It looks like a big book, and is it part of a duology?
Yes, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, Heart of the Sun Warrior, I think.
I think I would be interested to compare it because I think what might have let this book down slightly is that it's a standalone.
Right. Yeah. So this is 500 pages. But also this is a retelling, inspired by the Mid-Autumn legend. That's what it just says on the
Hmm.
front here. So I wonder whether maybe with a solid structure or a solid story that it probably needs to follow, we might follow it a little better in that
Mm.
sense. And I know that this isn't Chinese inspired mythology, but with a bit of Su Lin Tan's own sort of original ideas. And the concept was great. I just think too many things kept popping up that kept be like I kept getting
Yeah.
jump scares.
I know, I know.
So yeah, would we recommend this?
I feel like we very rarely don't recommend it. I think if you're thinking about prioritizing it, maybe get there eventually, but I wouldn't read it over another book. I couldn't sit here and say that you should definitely read it before anything else on your TBR.
I'm gonna say no. I don't recommend this. I don't think not anyone should read this. Sorry, that's awful. I don't think I could recommend this to people about how I feel about it.
Mm.
If people loved Daughter of the Moon Goddess and are thinking, oh, I've got to read Sue Lynn Tan's an auto buy for me, then smashing, cool. But no.
Yeah, I can't say if I can recommend it to you because I don't know if this is what Sue Lynn Tan normally writes like. And if you love her and this is the kind of thing that you enjoy, then you might love this. I don't know. I've got no concept because I've never read those very, very popular books before. But if she's an autobiography for you, then this might just be your bag. Cool, but it's not mine.
No, no. For sure. Okay. Um, on to happier resolutions, perhaps. Um, next week we will be reading Legendborn by Tracy Dion. We are reading it, I think, in time for it. Either it's just the third one has just come out, or the third, it's similar to when we read Fourth Wing and Onyx Storm came out the next day. I think the third one in the trilogy comes out just as we're releasing the episode.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, no, it is Arthurian legend inspired,
Mhm.
contemporary, Arthur's legacy, Arthur's ancestors. No,
Something
what's the difference? Arthur's the ancestor, descendants. Arthur's descendants
descendants.
in a sort of I've heard nothing but great things about Legendborn. So I again, it's always worrying when we go into a book that has a fuckload of hype, but I'm pretty confident Tracy knows what she's fucking doing. Yeah.
It's been on the TBR for a really long time, and actually, it's kind of criminal of me not to have read it before now. So I'm really excited for this one. And yep, going in with high expectations, but I'm not worried. I think it's going to be a good time.
The fact that I own this in paperback and it's on my TBR, like physical TBR stuff, I can see it from here. That tells me that yeah, it's been on my TBR for a while.
Mm.
So I'm looking forward to reading this, and hopefully we are not as disheveled or disappointed as we were this week.
We'll have to find out.
Absolutely. We've got some really exciting books coming, guys. When we're on TikTok, we're quite open and we allude to the ones that we're going to be reading in months' time. Some big new releases that are coming, some by R.F. Kuang. And yeah, we're so excited. Thank you all so much for following us. We've managed to get a few more followers, and actually quite a lot of you are now listening routinely, which is very fun and very exciting.
Hmm.
Uh, one of our followers, Ellen, she might not listen to this, but they told Amy the other day that she was listening in her car, and both of us decided to have a small shit fit while I was pacing around my lounge going and screaming very high octaves of people listen to us in their cars. So yeah, that's great, and obviously it's fun and it gives us this little boost that, we love doing it, but it gives us more of a fun boost, right?
It's nice to know that you guys enjoy listening to it. I hope you do, because we could just sit and talk about books and not record it, but we haven't. We've decided to put it out there, and yeah, it's cool to chat to you all. So keep commenting, please. Keep
Ab-
interacting with us. We love it, and we hope you enjoy it as well.
Absolutely. And if there's any content you want to see, let us know. If there's any behind the scenes you want to see, other than obviously those great shots I'm just going to be putting up later.
And
Um,
anything you recommend we read, because although I have created our handy dandy overview, I'm looking at it and there's still some
there are
slots for later in the year. So anything new that's coming out that you're particularly keen on, or anything you just think you should have already read this by now, ask us if it's on our TBR, and if it is, we will definitely slot it in.
absolutely. And we did have a bunch of recommendations that on our post the other day, which we thank you very much, and we're currently filtering through them. to have a chat about, and maybe that we won't read them for the podcast, but we'll probably end up reading them almost probably together, but just not
Mm.
publicly. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Happy reading.